The Sound Off Podcast. The show about podcast and broadcast. Starts now.
What did you love about that Winnipeg Radio Reunion?
Oh my God. That's the first thing. Hey, I was saying that a lot. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Just seeing the people that I hadn't seen for so long. That was really the most exciting part. And then, some of the stories popping up and that sort of thing. And remembering some of those stories too, being reminded of, oh yeah, I did that, or oh yeah, I was a part of that, or yeah. So that was really exciting. Seeing you again after all these years.
I had a few moments where I ran into people that I worked with in other markets, because Winnipeg, and a lot of people don't know this, has really been a launch pad for so many careers. People come and they start here and then they leave and go elsewhere. And, there was so much star power in that room that a lot of cities, the same size as Winnipeg, just couldn't muster or put together if they tried.
Yeah, if you were a radio junkie, you grew up on radio, there was voices and people there that you're like, oh my God, I grew up with this. You hear a lot of the bit. I remember you guys did this. You remember that? Like, those stories you remember? Yeah. That maybe make you get into radio, some of those shenanigans they would do.
What was the one person you were most surprised to see, or brought back a lot of memories, or just made your blood get, pump harder and get excited?
I'd say for a surprise, it would be Brother Jake, because I heard so many stories about Brother Jake. Now, I kind of started at CITI after he left, so I heard all the stories, and I obviously heard some of the bits, but just seeing him in person, it was kind of like a fan moment, and going, man, he looks the same. Brother Jake, he looks the same.
Yeah.
He does. Just the old guys, just the older guys that you don't see a lot of, because, you're Don Percy. I mean, look at Don Percy still going at 82 or something like that.
87.
Excuse me, I missed it. See?
Yeah.
I didn't want to age him too much, way to go.
Yeah. And I actually got to have lunch with him the day before, and I'm telling you, he is still firing on all pistons. And
he does. Yeah.
He turned to me and he said, Matt, how you doing? I said, I'm doing great. Oh, that's too bad. You went to high school just north of Winnipeg, am I right?
I did, yeah. I grew up in Winnipeg, yeah. Grew up, St. Andrews, Selkirk. Selkirk is where I went, where I graduated. Did you know that? Or did you think I was in...
Oh, no, I knew that. I got that listed here. We do a lot of research, and we have private investigators who...
I know you do. I know.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah, Selkirk gang out there graduated. That's about it.
How'd you land your first radio job?
Oh, boy. You know what? Let me tell you. Let me take you back. So I'm not one of those people that went, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to do radio. I got out of school, and I didn't want to go to college or whatever, university, because I didn't know really what I wanted to do. So I kind of wanted to find out maybe more of what I wanted to do. And I remember I was looking at the want ads because I was going to take a year off, do some work or something. And there was an ad for radio. It was a 1-day-a-week course, learn radio. I'm like, okay, let me go check that out. And it was this one guy. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name because it was so long ago. But he had been in radio a long time ago. He's one of these old guys, and he had his day. He was a big celebrity, big star. But unfortunately, he didn't save a lot of money. So as he got older, he needed to make some money. So this was kind of a way for him to make some money. So I remember learning to do radio on the old reel to reel. He had all this old equipment, but I was able to get a tape. And as you know, back in the day, getting that tape, the demo tape, was the big deal. So I was able to kind of get a demo tape out of this 1-day-a-week course. And then I shopped it around, and I was able to get into Brandon, of all places. I was there for about 8 months, and gave Ross Winters a call saying, hey, you got a spot? And I ended up getting a CITI.
You too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in that era, and I'm thinking like early 90s,
yep.
I mean, that was where you sent your tapes if you wanted to work for a really, really cool radio station. And, that was built to win.
Well, you had the option too of doing overnights, right? You don't have that option to kind of learn on the job. That was the great thing about overnights, learning on the job. What better experience than to learn on the job, right? So that was great. But, the 6-hour shifts overnight, did that for a few years.
So I was sending tapes to Ross around the same time.
Oh.
91. There's no job for me. And as it turns out, about a year and a half later, I was working in Montreal. So I want to know, what was it like working the all-night show in Winnipeg?
You never knew. Actually, people called you back then. You didn't realize until you did the shift, there were so many people that actually have jobs overnight and would call you up. The weirdest thing I ever got, as far as a call, was Dave Mustaine from Megadeth. This was about like 2 or 3 in the morning. They had played a show in Winnipeg. Somehow this guy had gotten the hotline. Do you remember the hotlines?
Oh, yeah.
And way to get into the station, you call the hotline. And hotline's ringing. It's either the boss giving you shit or, it's somebody that's important.
A wrong number.
Right, yeah. So Dave Mustaine. And I'm like, kind of throwing off. I'm like, is this really him? But so we get to talking. Here's the thing. He wanted me to call his wife because his wife, he had done an interview. After I talked to him, I did a little interview with him. Guess he called his wife. He mentioned he was with this girl doing an interview. She didn't believe him. I had to call his wife to say, yeah, I'm Alix. I'm at this radio station in Winnipeg. Yes, I interviewed Dave. She didn't believe me. She told me basically, F myself. This chick is a black belt. Like his wife is like a black belt. Anyway, it was this whole weird thing of calling Dave Mustaine's wife. And so that was the kind of stuff you would get at like 3 in the morning. You never knew what you'd get. It was awesome.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, I mean, a lot of radio stations are based, by the way, in buildings that they've always housed radio. And I believe you were at Polo Park at the time.
Yeah, definitely. CKY was in the same building. 58. Yeah. 58, KY58 was in the same building too, and the TV station.
Was it owned by Moffat back then?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, for sure. It was.
And sold right around then too, I recall.
I think there was definitely a sale in there too. Yeah, yeah.
When did you leave Winnipeg?
I left Winnipeg in 98 the first time because I did come back, but I left in 98.
So are you working at CITI all that time?
Yeah. Yeah, I worked at CITI all that time. So when I left, I was doing middays when I left. So I got up to middays. And the reason I kind of left, I guess I left around 97. I was doing TV as well. So I was working on MTN at the time. It was a TV show called The Scene that I put together. So I would do radio and I would do TV at the same time. And that was pretty challenging, I got to tell you. So they said, hey, tell you what, we'll give you an hour show on TV. So I went, okay. So I quit radio. I do the hour. I lasted 1 hour show. And then they cut it back to just like cut-ins and stuff like that. So it was a way of getting me out of radio, technically, that they did. So I did TV for a little bit with them. And then I left to go do radio in the States.
Okay. So help me out here. What was MTN?
MTN was, it was like a TV station. It was where Peter Young did sports. They did news. It was the Manitoba Television Network. And again, owned by locals, the Craigs. So it was another locally owned station. And I did a segment called The Scene. So I would go out and I would do, entertainment, concerts, all the events in the city, film them, put them together, write them up, do interviews and stuff. And then we would do the segment twice a day.
Now I remember. So
Yeah.
the Craigs also had a channel out in
Right.
Calgary and Edmonton. I was in Edmonton at the time, and yeah, you're right. Like around 97, these TV stations began to come on the air, and we were getting busier on the dial. And eventually 4 or 5 years later, I mean, there were more radio licenses that got handed out as well. So there was lots of work out there.
So it was like MTN was before A Channel, really.
Yeah.
And then, it spawned into that for sure.
Yeah. I think the family was from Brandon originally.
I think so too. Yeah. They definitely own some stations in that. Yeah. Yeah. The Craigs.
So your time in Winnipeg ended in 98. And
Yeah.
how, why, and where did you go?
Well, I really wanted to try to break the American market. I really wanted to try. And I ended up doing it. Now, I did have to marry American. Long story on that. I won't bore you with that. But I ended up working in several radio stations in the States. So I was in Minneapolis, which was, I guess, my biggest market, 17th market in the States. I was on the air there when 9/11 happened. I was doing middays. I was on right after the morning show. So that was an experience, let me tell you.
So you were on at WLOL, is that right?
Correct. Yeah. It was a classic.
That's a big radio station.
Yeah, it was a classic hits. They had, though, get this, they had a 300-song playlist. Talk about tight.
That's tight.
It's tight. But that was what it was. It was just tight radio, but it was major market radio. That's what it was.
Yeah, competitive.
Oh.
As anything.
Oh, yeah. Like
I seem to recall LOL was a top 40 station maybe at one point and had moved off it and was probably in a war with KDWB and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think it's a talk station now. I'm not quite sure what it's become. It's still on the dial, but I don't know what it is.
I'm going to wind up looking that up. You know that I'm going to do that, right?
Yeah, well, you do that.
Actually, I think I think it's KFan. I think it's a sports station.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of KFan. I didn't know if maybe it switched over because KFan wasn't KFan on the AM dial or something?
Yeah, it moved over. And I think when it moved over to FM, that's where you go and listen to your Minnesota Vikings these days.
Got you. Yeah. But at one time it played these classic hits and I was there. So that was kind of interesting.
And from Minneapolis, where to?
And then I went down to New Hampshire. So I did New Hampshire. I did Manchester. I was at a station there, Rock 101, and did some voice tracking, WHEB. Did a little voice tracking in Portsmouth.
Yep.
And doing some live shows there. And and then I ended up getting to Myrtle Beach. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. South Kakalaki.
So what's the process from going from station to station to station? Was it just, throwing out cassettes and MP3s and hoping for the best? Or was it networking? Was it word of mouth?
I'll tell you what, it was interesting. Like before I got to Myrtle Beach, I applied at different stations. I ended up they flew me out to Rochester, New York, to try with this one guy. And that was interesting. They flew me first class and everything. We did, a couple air shows together, but it just didn't work out. I didn't end up getting the job.
What station's that?
God damn, I can't remember. It was on the river. I think it was on the river. It was something with river in it.
Okay.
Something with river in it. But then I'm kind of glad that didn't work out because, snow, kind of the same environment. So it was nice to be able to get a job in Myrtle Beach and live at the beach for a little bit, But the process was just talking to people. They seemed to think I had something. All of them, anytime I went, really were gaga about what I did. When I went to Manchester, what kind of sucked is the lawyer there had applied for paperwork for me to work there. They had fired the evening guy. They put me in the evenings. I'm like, hey, I'm set, right? And the lawyer had filed the wrong paperwork. So they ended up having to let me go because it would have taken another 6 months or so for this paperwork to go through. So, and I couldn't work in that time. So obviously they needed a voice. So that kind of sucked. But then it opened up more doors and I ended up, getting that paperwork done or wherever and got to Myrtle Beach and stayed there for a little bit.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're telling me about this experience because I saw so many of my friends leave and I didn't. And I didn't pursue it and I probably should have. And I wonder how life would have worked out. It's just one of those things. And sometime between 98 and 2002, there was just Canadians just pouring south, whether it was for television or it was for radio. There were just jobs. And for whatever reason, Americans love to hire Canadians. It's because we're so nice, I guess.
I don't know. But it's hilarious, a couple times getting outed as a Canadian. I can kind of get through it without the accents. But I remember when I did a Bob Seger song and I went against the wind instead of against the wind. Or no, how do they say it? We say against, right? There it's against.
Yes.
And I had said against and everybody was like, oh, you would have, my God, who are you? Where are you from? So there was the little telltale signs you had to kind of weed out of your Canadian vocabulary to kind of fit in. But other than that, it was a good experience in for the most part. There was some crap too, but there always is in radio,
And you did some TV down there too.
Yeah, I actually worked for Fox, believe it or not. So the gist of this is they had a show in Charlotte. Okay, Charlotte, North Carolina. They're big, the hub of their station. So in South Carolina, they had kind of a little affiliate in Myrtle Beach. So they wanted to make it more of just they were playing just a lot of shows, like syndicated shows, right? You tune in to this Fox show. So they wanted to have a show that was their own. So they came up with something called Not the News, which was kind of what they were doing in Charlotte. It was just called a different thing. But it was getting the funnier news stories and making fun of them and doing some TV and stuff. So I ended up applying for that. And I got it. I was the first host of it. So me and another guy, his name was Greg Rolls. His big claim to fame was winning Star Search in 1990, whatever. So he won. So it was this guy. And I did that. So I would do my morning show. I'd do radio for Star 92.1. And then I would do the TV. We'd take the TV in the afternoon. And then I would do voice work after that. So it was quite long days, but it was interesting. I guess I can say I did it. But people always ask me which one I like better, in case you're going to ask me. Radio.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah. TV's tough because you can do a great story and you can, hey, I thought that was a great story. And, well, why did you wear that shirt though? Or, it's more of the look too, eh?
What's it like working in a beach town? Because all I can think of is like you do your shift and then like when your shift's over, you're on the beach, and it doesn't work out that way, does it?
No. So Myrtle Beach is a huge, huge tourist town. So when it's summertime, you get something like 10 million people coming through. So it's a bit of a challenge, first of all, getting to work because there's one way in and one way out. And so I find myself not really going to the beach because of so many tourists. I'd go later, in the off season. But when it's on, it's like you do your thing and you get out of town because there's so many tourists and you get sick of tourists. So yeah, it was a tourist town. Did golf though. There was a lot of golfing.
I mean, I always find that in tourist towns, the sales department acts a lot weirder because so much of the business really depends on like bars and restaurants and tourist stuff. Yet those tourists aren't from there and listening to the station most of the year, but you're trying to create. So then you get these different promotions that you need to do. You have this sort of different programming flow. So like when it's tourist season, things change.
Interesting that you say that. A lot of the radio stuff we did, though, never really seemed to cater to the visitors. It was more like the locals, and then the visitors would come. So we always kind of did our own thing, but that thing may have just been different, right? You can have, bar gig on the beach, right? Well, who's not going to come to that anyway? You see people having a party on the, the beach, you're going to end up going there, sort of thing. But I loved it and I didn't at the same time because it was busy. I'm telling you, those summers were nuts. But
I'm sort of always thinking about the events driven promotions that really sort of, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Pretty much you were talking about retail too. There's a lot of like beachwear stores, Have you ever been to Myrtle Beach?
I haven't.
Oh man.
No.
A lot of beachwear stores, a lot of golf, a lot of tourists, and a Ferris wheel. That's it. And sand and nice beach.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of Canadians would go there. That was another thing. A lot of Canadians go to Myrtle Beach. I don't know now, but did.
Yeah, I think those Canadians are taking the year off.
I think so. I think we've kind of went, okay, we're good.
Yeah. And so what was the decision that prompted you to make a return home?
It was pretty much family. Yeah, it was about that time. I had kind of done a lot. I'd been away for a bit, and I'm an only child. So, it's kind of sometimes on your shoulders to kind of make sure everything's good. So, yeah, it was kind of always in the cards that I was going to come back. But, yeah, I don't know if I came sooner or later, but I guess it was the time, kind of. So, yeah, it worked out. To be honest, my morning show partner actually passed away before I left Myrtle Beach. So yeah, I worked at Star 92.1. We had the Mitch and Alix, morning show. And sadly he had passed. So I stayed there for a little bit after he did. And it just, it wasn't the same. So I ended up, it was just time to go. So I haven't told that story many times because, But yeah. You know, it's bad when you have a morning show partner, and maybe people can relate to this. There's so many things that happen in the studio that's only between you and your partner, and, you know, the in-betweens and stuff. And, you know, when one's gone, or maybe sadly if it's passing, or you're not friends anymore or something, you miss that. Hey, you remember? Because you have nobody else to kind of ask.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be left with the stories,
Yeah.
and you're the only one left to tell the story, and the person that you shared that event with is not with you anymore.
Yeah. So
And there's a lot of them.
I know. Yeah. So when we did good there in Myrtle Beach, we had like Best of the Beach a few years, stuff like that. And he was a good guy. Funny guy. So I'm glad I had that experience, though. Yeah. Mornings suck, though. I hate mornings.
You didn't have to when you got back to Winnipeg, because I think there was a midday position there for you at City again.
Yeah. Well, that was cool. When I came back in 2010, yeah, I shopped around and it's like, hey, we got a spot for you. So I ended up getting back in there a little bit, and it was good until it wasn't.
Which was about a year later, am I right? Year and a half later? 2 years later.
Yeah, because I was around there. I was there for a little bit, and then I'm not quite sure when they came in, but it was like 2000 something. Kind of put it out of my mind. But can you look that one up too?
What are we looking up?
No, just when 94 started. That's when I left. Because that's when I left. I had a little bit of a break, and then I went to 94. But when 92 blew up and Wheeler had moved over and that sort of thing, so that's when.
So that would be 2012, and then you found your way to 94.3, which
there you go. Yeah.
Were they calling it the Drive?
No, it went through a couple phases. It was like Fab.
Okay, so this is my favorite part of the radio conversation, because it starts really right when you get back in 2010, and we have this glut of radio stations, and Clear, Fab, Fresh, Bounce, Power, and I'm like, are these radio stations or fabric softeners? What is this?
Yeah, when I came back, because, you know, I'd been away for a bit. And then when I came back in the radio scene, man, it had changed a lot, like you said. You know, Ace Burpee was nobody when I'm just saying, like, different names and all these kind of different incarnations, different stations. What was it like when I left? Like, you were in the heat of that. What was that like?
Well, I got here in 2006, and it was basically just, you know, manage power and, you know, stay close to Ace Burpee at Hot, and, you know, you've got Wheeler and Hal, and, you know, don't screw it up too much.
Right.
And CJOB was number one. And by the way, it's an AM radio station, and it's still practically number one and hasn't changed much, since then. But yeah, that was really it. I think Power was just, you know, hey, finish top three, 25-54. The people upstairs will get a bonus, and, the hallways will be happy. You know, City kind of felt like the number two choice for rock for a number of years.
Oh, really?
And then there was also Curve, and Curve was 2008. And I think that was a very forward thinking radio station, you know, about the mix of music that they would play was somewhat alternative, but it was chum. So there was still some pop to it. And so that was interesting. They had a lot of great personalities on the air there too.
What about this Freak? Because that thing.
Oh, I forgot about Freak.
Did that happen?
Yeah. So Freak 107 was in CFEQ, and you know, somebody you'd know from your time at City. I think Gordo Fry was working it, and you know, there was just options on the radio with music and personalities, and so there was just so much to choose from.
Yeah.
Whether it was rock or whether it was top 40, and you know, even something at 92.9, which I think was the campus station at Red River College. You know, they had good shows on, and their license for something completely different. So it was a seriously very, very busy dial. And I didn't even talk about 99.9 Bob, which was, you know, we've done an episode on that, and we had Howard here on the program talking about, you know, this is the birthplace of classic hits in North America. This is the place.
Howard was there at that reunion too. So it was great.
Absolutely.
Brainchild. Yeah, that was great. Great idea. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us were sort of discovering the idea because we would get drunk. We would get drunk, and we would play 80s tunes with our friends. And I think Howard and the brain trust over there were the only ones smart enough to do, hey, let's do a radio format with this. And it was, it worked. And that's why we got Bob and classic hits across North America now.
Yeah, exactly. And in the States, so I was like, oh, that started. I know where that started. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Small world.
Yeah. So, I mean, you found your way over to 94.3. Don't know what you were playing. You were playing Fab, so that's older stuff.
Yeah, it was like oldies, and then we kind of went to the more of a rock thing, and the drive, I liked it. It's like another class, kind of competing for that rock pie. But yeah, I guess they blew that up, and that's not doing well. Through that blow up.
Well, there's a lesson in that. And so, I went to Drive, it went to something, then it went to something, it went to something, and then, join the conversation, and now it's alt. But all that to say, and this happens in every market, and I think in Edmonton, it was happening at 96.3 a lot. It's like, it's the place on the dial that just changes so often that people in their mind just think bad radio lives here.
Because you're in like being a PD and stuff, this market, like when it's just a different market, and either you get it or you don't. And I just found that, something that may work in a different market in a different province doesn't work here a lot of the times. And that's what happened. And, some people, they know, and they obviously didn't know.
I think a lot of people want to catch that lightning in a bottle, like the way that Bob did. But at the same time, it's very, very, you can't bring anything boring here. I mean, Winnipeg is a test market. So that even a place like Wendy's will try out new hamburgers here. There's new products that get tested out in this market all the time. And if they work here, they will likely work in other places. But, especially when you're a programmer, if you bring, this is kind of universal, but if you bring what worked in one market to another market, it probably isn't going to work the same. But it's especially true here in Winnipeg. So I had Garth Butch go sit me down, and he just said, listen, let me tell you how this works here. And he said, this is a relationships town. Everything is done with relationships and, showing up, meeting people, being kind, that sort of thing, get to know people, and just work from that side and you'll do great. And I did. And it worked great.
Yeah. Well, I'm just telling you, being in it and that whole thing that happened, and just kind of sitting in those meetings and hearing kind of the talk, and you just kind of shake your head going, you just don't get it. And, I'm going to say it, having a conversation, you got to have people that can have that conversation. So you can't have a whole bunch of, and I'm not slamming, but you can't have young personalities that don't really know and go, here, have a 4-hour conversation and, stuff like that.
I mean, it's the hardest job.
It is.
And that's, creating 4 hours of live content and 5 days a week.
It is tough.
Yeah. I mean.
Oh, and then living off here, that interaction with people. That's the whole thing. If people aren't interacting, then you're trying to, it was tough. Like I've talked to people that worked it. It was tough on them. So and then they got rid of all kind of the veterans. So it was kind of interesting choice.
Yeah. I mean, sometime around 2012, I think the, 6-figure salaries began to disappear.
A what?
A 6-figure salary, for a morning.
Never seen one in my life.
Oh, for a morning show.
Oh yeah. Okay.
They began to disappear. If you wanted to make a big signing or a big splash, it might cost that much. And there were a few who had that in a few spots.
Money in the States, speaking of money, like I did the morning show. I didn't get paid a lot. South Carolina.
Yeah. It's tough to get that. It was tough to get that 6-figure salary unless you had the ratings, which means you got to be top 2 or 3. And then the fear that you were going to leave at any moment.
Yeah.
That was
the
it.
Ratings, I won't want to talk about it, but it's hard with the ratings, the crappy way that we have to judge who listens to the radio. Come on, man. It's BBMs, whatever.
So Winnipeg, I think, is the biggest market that doesn't have PPM. And I'm not here to say that PPM is a good way to measure your radio station with those pagers that pick up the signal. Winnipeg uses diaries, and you get one in the mail, and then you get $5, and then you have to remember what you listened to and write it down and then send it back. And it takes a long time to fill out. And Listen, I've got a survey in the field right now for my podcast, and like you can click it and go through it in about 3 minutes. I mean, I've had 2 people fill it out so far. Like it's like people are over surveyed on just about everything in their life. But to fill out this ballot now is so archaic.
No, and this is what we rely on for our ratings. Like you're talking about, well, if you got ratings and all that, well, like one person filling out a diary could be worth 5,000 people or whatever. Like we got to figure that one out.
Yeah, I mean, there is an online component to that now. I think you can fill some of that out.
Yeah, I think you can online, but even that though, Matt, like it's not a good way to judge how people, listening.
Well, I will say that I was at the Pod Show in London a few weeks ago. Oh. And I did run into somebody who said that somebody was working with somebody here in the country to change that. Oh. And it's not that I'm not allowed to say what it is and how it works or anything. Sure. It was cocktail hour and I've forgotten what
Fair enough.
Yeah, I can't. But he said he's from far away, but was bringing new ideas to change this stuff in the future. So there is change afoot.
Let's hope, because it is. As a program director back, and that would have been, come on, you're relying on that.
Yeah, and it's not what you listen to; it's what you remember listening to. So you need a good voice on the radio. You need to write great promos. You need to have great contests. You need to make it so people remember.
Yeah.
What's going on.
For sure.
And who they're listening to.
Yeah. Got to make good radio.
You're a voice. You got a great voice. She Voice is what, She Voice Productions is where we were writing the checks to at one point.
Yeah. Oh, where's my sign? Hold on. Oh, there it is. Oh, look at that profesh.
Yeah. How have you found voiceover over the last, 5 to 10 years?
Let's go over the last 2.
Okay.
Because the last 5 wasn't too bad, but I'd say the last 2, for me anyway, I've slowed down a lot. That's by choice. I think I was getting a little burnt out. But also just with this whole AI stuff and all this, I've kind of, if it comes to me, I do it, but I'm not searching it out as much as I used to because it's very saturated now with people wanting to do it, which is fine. Hey, everybody do their thing. But this AI and your voice, and boy, that's scary, where they could actually clone my voice. Like I could do a spot for somebody and they could clone my voice and then never use me again or never use. And I wouldn't know. How would I know?
Exactly. It might actually be happening and you don't even know.
Totally. Yeah.
I had somebody say, hey, this website, there's a person here named Matt. I can choose the AI voice and it sounds an awful lot like you.
Exactly.
And I had to go and listen and go, oh my God, I don't have to sue anybody. I don't have time to sue anybody.
What do you do? You can't, and I get it. We're not the Yahoo guy. Did you ever hear about that lawsuit?
No.
The guy, okay, so this guy for Yahoo, I'm sorry I don't know his name. You guys can Google it. But that Yahoo.
Yes.
Okay, so he did a voiceover and he did that. It was paid like $200. Okay. But he wasn't told what they were going to do in a sense. So they that was like their thing. Yahoo. That's how you remembered Yahoo. So this guy ended up suing and he won like millions, but that's like few and far between it now, stuff like that. But look that one up. That's interesting. Yeah.
I'll leave this also on the episode page and in the show notes, but that's an episode of 20,000 Hertz with Bev Standing, who had her voice cloned and had an AI thing, and she became the voice of TikTok, and she had never given permission for it.
Oh, is it the same girl? Is she from Ontario?
So the new girl is from Ontario, and actually Bev is from Ontario too. And so the former, Bev is the former voice of TikTok that was not authorized. They settled on a deal.
Okay.
And the new one is Kat Callahan, who at one point an Evanoff employee, and I can't remember where she works now.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I do. I remember her story because I saw that, but I didn't remember the other one. Wow. That's something. Yeah. Whew.
Well, I'll put the podcast episode in the show notes for anybody who wants to listen to it. And 20,000 Hertz is a great podcast for those who want to dig into that one. I have for you some questions. Actually, I've got some questions. Duh, it's an interview show. But What advice would you give someone who wins money in the lottery?
Don't spend it. Don't spend it. Well, it depends on how much you win. It's kind of changed a lot in how much. If you win 20 million, yeah, got to share it with your family. That's another thing. If you win that kind of money, your family will disown you if you don't. Not saying that nobody's disowned us, but we definitely, shared a little bit where we could. Just don't spend it.
I think you won it on the extra on a 649. Is that right?
No, it was Lotto Max.
Oh.
Lotto Max.
All right.
Lotto Max.
What's that feeling like?
Wow. It's a little undescribable. It's surreal, actually. You don't think it's happening to you until you get the check. And then even then, it still doesn't seem it's happening to you. I just kept thinking, thank God, because being in radio, I would never have made that kind of money. So we just thank God, and we were so happy. And yeah, I remember Curtis coming in it was technically morning because he checked. It was like 2 a.m. or something. And he comes, knocking because we kind of, the whole 2 double bed thing. Don't want to hear the snoring thing. And he's like, I wasn't sure if I should wake you up, but I think we won the lottery. What? I think we won the lottery. Come on. So he's going through the numbers or whatever. And we're like, holy shit. We ended up doing a little video going, it was. Am I the only chalk? That's one, you think? Box?
No, but listen, most of the time that somebody puts in most of the time when the Winnipeg Sun has a story about a local DJ, they're going to jail. And you did not.
Broke that trend.
Yeah. What's the process like when you go down to the lottery office? Like what's that about? How's that like? What's that about? Are there balloons? Is there a marching band?
Well, they had a limo come get you. So the limo went to the press conference there. I think it was at the convention center. God, I was so out of it. Like, you were so like, so they had, some of our family and, press all set up. They had a little table set up. They had the big check. They had the balloons and all that stuff, but you had to give them permission too before that, right? It's like, do you give your permission to use your photos and stuff?
Likeness.
Yeah, likeness sort of thing. We're like, I don't know.
Be funny if you said no, but you can listen to my show today later on the radio.
Yeah, hey, any press is good press. Okay, so, so then we just kind of did the news conference. They had the news there and they had the congratulations, gave the check, had some questions, from the media, showed up on CKY later in the news channels. And and then they give you the actual check and you deposit that thing and you look at the numbers and you go, holy shit.
That's amazing.
It's a lot of numbers. Yeah, yeah.
Do you still play?
Kurt does. I don't, but he does more than that. I may pick up a quick pick or something, but he's kind of got a system going now. And he's got a set of numbers, and he's like, damn it, if those numbers come in and I don't play it. So he's kind of locked in. So
always a quick pick, or else you get locked in.
Now he's locked in. He's got the number one, so he's got to play that. So
what's your favorite restaurant in Winnipeg?
Ooh. That's a good one. There's a few good ones. I was just talking about this the other day. The Merchant Kitchen. Have you ever gone there and got their Korean chicken, that crusty chicken and the skillet corn? Oh, yeah, I like that. It's a good one too. And anything with a patio.
Sorry?
And anything with a patio.
Yes, not in January.
Well, yeah, the summertime.
So for anybody who does come to Winnipeg, Merchant Kitchen is right across the street from Canada Life Center where the Jets play. So great spot. And by the way, make a reservation on Open Table before your event. It's so that's great advice for anybody who's coming to town. Best thing to order at Pasquale's on Marion.
Oh, my friend Joe. I went to school with Joe.
Did you?
Yeah, I went to school with Joe back in the day. St. Andrews, Lockport,
That's right.
Yeah, yeah.
He was telling me that he was from there.
Joe, well, he's got good pizzas, man. He's good. Actually, he's got a lot of good stuff. The pasta, the stuff that they make, they've been around for so long. And actually, Pasquale's, here's another one for you may not know. I'm pretty sure about this, that he bought it from, do you remember Kat Galloway?
No.
Wait, okay, she was an announcer back in the day in the 90s. She would have been, when I was around, Darcy, not Don Percy, and Kat Galloway. Anyway, Lesherbo is her real last name, Kathy Lesherbo. And great girl, but she lives in BC now and whatever. But her dad started Pasquale's, and I believe they sold Pasquale's to Joe.
Wow.
Yeah. So I remember Kat used to, waitress at Pasquale's when her dad owned it. I'm pretty sure that's the story.
Yeah, and it is my favorite pizza in Winnipeg.
Oh, it is. It's good. Yeah.
What's the best thing about summer in Winnipeg?
Getting out of Winnipeg. Just kidding. No, yeah. Actually, kayaking. You'd be surprised. There's lots of great spots. If you just head out of town, we've got a lot of great parks and stuff like that. I could go down to St. Bon, Lac de Bonnie area and stuff down that way. I love doing the kayaking and getting outdoors. There's a lot of spots that you don't know about here in the city or outside of the city. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Beaudry Park.
Oh, okay.
Which is down towards Headingley.
Okay.
And you can sneak in there for a quick cross-country ski.
Love it. Yeah. I like doing the stuff on the water, like doing some boating, kayaking, because you don't get to do that. But then I also snowmobile too in the wintertime. So, hit some trails and do that sort of stuff. So I find the outdoor stuff around here is great.
Yeah. So here's the thing with the snowmobiling. So for me, I haven't had much of a chance to do it in my life, but I do know that if you're from St. Andrews and up in that area, the trails up there, that is snowmobile territory up there.
Yeah. Well, St. Andrews ain't that far. St. Andrews ain't that far. But even if you go to like Birds Hill Park, they've got all these trails in Birds Hill Park, Lac de Bonnie, all those trails down there. Hitting the river, you wouldn't believe it. It's like a little town on the river with all these shacks and stuff in certain areas. It's like, wow. So, and further up north you go, stuff like that. Yeah. There's some good spots if you know where to look. Sometimes, if you look downtown, you go, what's there to do? But if you go outside, there's lots of good stuff, I find anyway.
What makes Winnipeg so weird? How do you explain Winnipeg's weirdness to somebody who's not from Winnipeg?
It is tough to explain. It's gotten weirder. Matt, has it gotten weirder?
Yep.
I think so too. And I don't know how to explain it. I really don't. Is it just more of a mix of people? Is it just more people down on their luck? I don't know. But it is definitely strange.
Well, I think the downtown is emptier.
Yes.
I sort of, when people say, well, why is it weird? I say, well, Portage and Main. And by the way, Portage and Main is one of the more famous things that Canadians would know about Winnipeg is the intersection. So, well, they don't let people cross the street there. And, well, they do now because they're going to open it up. But we had a referendum on that in 2018. Like, why do you need a referendum to cross the street? People get petty and bizarre. Mm-hmm. And, well, now the downtown's sort of holed out. But I think the one thing that really captures it, there's a collection of Instagram accounts, Wild in Winnipeg and Winnipeg Elite. There's a bunch of them that just sort of share the film of the everyday goings on here. And
I can't believe the stuff they get.
Well, we don't see that anywhere else. Cars driving down the wrong lane for no reason. People hanging out windows, traffic lights coming apart, just absolutely atrocious driving.
Yeah.
Like why and how?
I don't even know, because I consider myself kind of normal, and I'm from Winnipeg. I was born and bred in Manitoba, so I don't think I'm strange, but there seems to be a lot of strangeness out there, and I don't know what to attribute it to, Matt. I don't. Now that you brought it up, but you're right. Like, I'm following those same things that you're following in some of the videos that they've caught. I'm like, this is here. Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of encapsulated by Guy Madden and that film he had many years ago in 2009. Yeah, My Winnipeg. And he would talk about some of the weird stuff, and some of it's true and some of it's not true. But if you watch the whole thing, it's like, hey, yeah, you know what? He's got a point. It really is weird here.
Did you ever talk to him, Guy?
No.
I did. I had him on Facebook. I was a friend with him for a little bit. I don't know if I still am, but he friended me on Facebook, and it was kind of nice. I don't know if he's just, I don't know, but he's a little strange too, but in a good way, you know? So I don't know. Maybe I am strange because he's from here too. I don't know. But when you watched it, what did you think of it? Like, seriously, I thought it was out there.
Oh, it was definitely out there. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, the idea of that the Winnipeg streets, the female names are named after the hookers that frequented those corners. And I'm like, is that real or not? And I don't know if that's real or not.
No, that.
Because there's so many weird things that happen every day that everybody puts up with it and goes, I guess.
Well, apparently there is clusters of neighborhoods that are named after stuff. I just found this out a few weeks ago. Like there's a neighborhood where it's flowers and they're all flower streets. And there's a neighborhood, something else, and it's all certain names. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go, yeah, there's.
So maybe it is true. Maybe not, but he's maybe getting on that idea of those kind of things and kind of, spun it Guy Madden style. I don't know.
Yeah. And there was another thing he mentioned in the films such as, well, there were only 2 taxi companies. One company got to use the real streets and the other company had to use the back alleys. And I'm not sure if that was true or not, but there were 2 taxi companies at the time. So how would I even know? And so much else is weird here either. I'll just go with it and say yes.
Yeah. And I mean, back alleys, where do we start with there? Like, who else has back alleys? Are we the only ones or no? Back alleys.
Well, I think so many of them. I mean, I look at a place like River Heights, like it just starts at the Assiniboine River and goes all the way down to the train tracks. And every 10 years, like you can see that new housing developments and it's just alleyways everywhere. And oh, okay. It's quite something.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mystery. Anyway, this is why the Simpsons had a billboard when they flashed to Winnipeg saying, Winnipeg, we live here. What's your excuse?
Have you thought about leaving?
Oh, every day.
Yeah, me too. But we're still here, right?
Yeah. I will say though that I've cut my time. So I've split my time between here and Spain and generally leaving quite a lot. But, I will say that, summer in Winnipeg is great.
It is.
I love it here in the summer.
Here's the thing. When I left for a while and, I was, in the States and all that stuff, and then coming back home, I did notice that comfort that I wouldn't have noticed otherwise if I hadn't left for a while. Because when I came back, that comfort of knowing where you're going and your friends and, oh, I know that place and I grew up over there and I have a memory over in that corner and, oh, I remember that. That is, special. Because when I came back, I was like, oh, I felt it again. And I actually was renewed when I came back. I'm like, oh, I'm back. I went up. It didn't last long. But, you grew here. It is your home. And it always is going to be for me anyway. My home. I was born here. But I have to say, I have been looking to do other things, like to kind of get out a little bit. Always come back, but damn it, my family are still here.
Well, we'll split a cab to the airport.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
I wanted to say happy anniversary on your 9 years with your podcast.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. Because I think I remember when you started, like when you were saying, oh, I'm going to do this podcast and all this. And now it's like 9 years. How's it been?
Well, I don't know. Why did it take 9 years to get you on?
I'm awful. And I apologize for that. Yeah, that was my bad.
Well, first of all, there's still a bunch of people I still haven't had on yet. And I go back for it. Hey, do you want to do it this month or next month or this year? And, it just doesn't happen. But I'm like, you just got to keep asking and eventually it just happens.
Do you like doing podcasts?
I do.
Yeah, that's good. And that's the most important thing if you like what you're doing.
Yeah, it's, I kind of feel like I wake up to the future every day and I've learned how to, do audio in a recorded format and, I sort of look at this as, a little bit like Netflix. So Netflix is on-demand television, right? So what's Netflix's biggest competition?
Is it you?
No, it's, we think it's going to be Amazon Prime or it's going to be television or it's going to be something, but
something else.
It's sleep.
Oh.
Right. And so you're dealing in the on-demand world, you're dealing with all the shit people got to cope in their life, and you have to market your way through that. And it's kind of a pleasant difference from 92 CITI-FM versus Power 97 versus CJOB versus Ace Burpee's Empire and all that stuff. It's just nicer, to sort of play in this sort of on-demand field and sort of new way to learn. So.
Yeah. Well, it's something new, and I'm glad you started it. It's kind of like you were at the beginning a little bit, right, of the podcast sort of thing. Like
I was sort of in wave, I guess maybe the second wave, maybe even the third wave. First wave was 2004, when they actually 2003 when they started to actually write the code for this. 2008 it goes into Apple, and then 2015 someone listens. Serial pops, and then everyone's like, "How do I listen to this thing?" Oh, there's an app on the phone, and I can listen to these things. So there was been a few waves.
And I just mentioned that because with voice work, I was, kind of one of the ones that kind of started in the beginning, like, I don't know, if it's like 2007, something like that. It was kind of just starting like, oh, hey, get a microphone, get, all this equipment. It was a little more money back then. But I was kind of at the start where I had a studio and I had different things, and that helped get clients. Now it's a little more congested on being able to do it. Everybody can do it, right? Back then, being able to get it in the start was a little easier than maybe it is now. Is what I'm.
Yeah, now it's like Fiverr, Upwork. You can get a voice anywhere.
Don't do Fiverr, people. Don't give away your stuff.
Nope, do not do that. Thank you.
Yeah, do it.
Alex.
Yeah, Matt.
Guess we'll catch you on the radio tomorrow.
Yeah, thankfully. My card still swipes. I'm still getting in. Yeah.
The Sound Off Podcast is written and hosted by Matt Kundle. Produced by Evan Serminski. Edited by Chloe Emo Lane. Social media by Aiden Glassy. Another great creation from the Sound Off Media Company. There's always more at soundoffpodcast.com.